All right, guys, as usual, please like and subscribe. For my subs that are wondering what the heck's going on with the what it could have been episode 8 conclusion, it's coming. It's coming. I've been working on it. It is coming. It's just, sometimes your personal life gets in the way and things go on and it just makes it difficult to do, but it is coming. And I think you're going to like it. And as for Book of Mandalorian episode 6, let's get into this. So the first scene is the Pikes again. They're drug running guys, and then Buddy from Mando that had Boba Fett's armor. I can't remember his name. He was like he's the marshal of this town or whatever, right? He shows up, which is yet another Mando character. We still haven't seen Boba Fett, and we're into the next episode following him not showing up in any single solitary scene whatsoever. And the marshal shoots the Pikes. It's kind of funny. He's like the marshal of really what amounts to basically like a village of 50 people in a just giant desert, but it's just whatever, fine, whatever. The last Pike guy leaves after paying a fine to tell the rest of them that they aren't welcome, and he survives, this onslaught from the marshal, which will be applicable later, and then instantly cue the cameos. So now we're on another cameo. So that was a borderline cameo. Now we get another cameo. It's obviously R2, and Mando knows where Luke is with Grogu, which maybe I missed something in the Mandalorian, but I don't know why he knows that. I thought he kind of gave him to Luke, and Luke was taking him, and that was kind of the end of it. But whatever. Let me know in the comments if there's a reason why Mando knows where Luke is. But it's all about Mando wanting to see Grogu. Which, again, to reiterate what I was saying a second ago, it's just kind of over the top to me. I mean, he's a bounty hunter, right? He left him in good hands, but can't get over it and has to see him for some reason. Which is weird. Like, why does he need to see Grogu so bad? This is a bounty hunter. He saved the kid, did what he had to do, and he's just, is he safe? Well, what do you think? Like, you gave him to Luke. It's just kind of weird. And it turns out this is where Luke has these spider-looking weird droids building his temple, which gets destroyed, of course, in the flashbacks in The Last Jedi. Then R2 shuts off, and so R2 sort of brings Mando and shows him where they're building this temple, and then he shuts off, and Mando's kind of left waiting, and he just goes to sleep, which isn't a big deal, but it's a little weird for R2 to do something like that. That's not his character. He's always the sort of smart aleck and all that stuff, but whatever. And then I got a sense from this that they were trying to appeal to a Chinese audience with the bamboo forest and the meditating with Luke and Grogu. Just a lot of meditation in the Disney Star Wars era. Luke's CGI in this was way better than in The Mandalorian, so obviously that guy they hired from YouTube, he must have been in on this one, because it looked really good. It actually looked like Luke. And then Grogu's distracted when they're training and they're doing their meditating, and he lifts up a frog, and then Luke lifts 100 frogs for whatever reason, and I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Look at me, I can lift 100 frogs, you can lift one, you can be more powerful, maybe, whatever. It's just kind of weird, and it's not the type of training we've seen in the OT, and even the prequels to a large extent, with all the meditating and stuff. But that's Disney Star Wars. They do a lot of that and a lot less of the practical stuff, at least from what I can see. Then Luke helps Grogu remember back home, which turns out to be the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, and seeing the clones executing Order 66 on a bunch of Jedis. That's kind of where it ends. That's it. Like, they don't really expand on that. Like, Luke doesn't ask him about it. There's no real dialogue or exposition as to Grogu having that memory. They just kind of just show it just to show it. Very Filoni fashion with this Clone Wars obsession and all that stuff. It's like, well, what was the purpose of that? Like, okay, that's his memory. Now what? Nothing. You see, there's zero connection between that and anything else with Grogu and Luke in this episode, which is strange. And now we're over an hour of the Book of Boba Fett, and there's no Boba Fett. There's all these other people, there's no Boba Fett for an hour now of screen. Anyways, I didn't hate the Luke Grogu scene, but it didn't feel very Star Warsy. It felt very, or at least pre-Disney Star Wars. It felt very Disney Star Wars. Cue the next cameo, and all of a sudden Ahsoka appears out of nowhere to Mando, which was kind of odd considering she didn't want Grogu to be she didn't want Grogu, right? She didn't want to train him, didn't want to be around him. And then she told Mando to find a Jedi to take him. If she knows where Luke is, why didn't she just take Mando to Luke? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, she knows where Luke is, so why go through this whole big process? She wasn't there. There's nothing that shows that she has any understanding of where Luke is whatsoever. She tells Mando to go find a Jedi, and yet for some reason, somehow, she knows where Luke is. And you're like, why didn't you just take Mando to Luke then? Instead of going through this whole big stupid process.
Which basically essentially led to Gideon getting a hold of Grogu in one of the episodes of The Mandalorian, and then getting his blood, which alludes to the idea of the blood they needed to recreate Palpatine. So basically, this whole time Ahsoka knew where Luke was, but then decided not to tell that to Mando, make them go through that process to where Grogu gets abducted. Like, that's dumb. This is dumb storytelling. It makes no sense. Unless we're going to say, oh, Luke went and found Ahsoka after the fact and then told her where he was. Why would he do that? What would be the purpose of that? What does he need her for? There's nothing in The Last Jedi, nothing in anything Disney Star Wars where she's involved with Luke's temple and teaching, right? Like the comics and stuff. This is just piss poor writing, and they think you're dumb.
It's bizarre. It makes absolutely no sense. It's basically so that they could have the scene with Luke fighting the Death Troopers, right? Because if she tells Mando, oh, you go to this planet with the bamboo, then that's it. But they had to have the scene and the Dark Troopers and the nonsense. It's like they don't. Filoni doesn't understand. Like, you have to have your episodes backing one another. Like, one verifies another. One helps to explain another, but they just throw it out there. Just look at the visuals, look at the fighting, look at Luke. It's Luke, even though it makes no sense. It's like, at the time it made sense, but now they've made it make no sense because they throw her in there because it's all about the visual. Look, it's Ahsoka. It's Ahsoka. Doesn't matter if it makes any sense. It's Ahsoka, and you're just like, what? Again, silliness. Going back to Ahsoka and her motivation, like, she was essentially uninterested in being part of this story, right? Like, she says, oh, no, go find another Jedi, I'm going away, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to fight this other battle with this other person in The Mandalorian. But now she's all of a sudden there, and she's a friend of the family with Grogu. It doesn't make any sense. I want nothing to do with him, but then I'm going to show up, and later on in the episode, she actually sort of semi-corrects Luke in his training with Grogu, even though she had no interest in training him, and sent Mando off. Like, none of it makes any sense. She sent Mando off to find another Jedi, but now she wants to be involved in his training. It is so convoluted, and I don't understand how people don't see it. Disney Star Wars fans don't see it, and I don't understand how Filoni and Favreau could write something like this and produce something like this without acknowledging that it's totally backwards and does not make sense, and the audience isn't. Well, I guess some of them maybe are stupid enough to absorb this and be all excited, but upon contemplation, you're just like, well, this makes no sense. She didn't want to be part of anything to do with him. It's so dumb. Basically, Mando is there because he's worried if Grogu is safe. And again, I go back to it. He witnessed a Jedi kick the snot out of 25 Death Troopers, save everybody. It willingly gave him over, but now all of a sudden he's worried and has to show up there. It's like they set the whole thing up so you could have like Luke and Mando, and so it's just like cameo. There's no reason for any of it. It makes no sense. But ultimately, I know why. Because again, we need him, Luke, and Grogu to save this show, which is now way off from the Book of Boba Fett story. Like, we're 2 episodes of no Boba Fett. Well, he's in this one for literally like 1 second. And they're gone on some other rabbit trail because this show's a failure. And I suspect they filmed a lot of this stuff thinking they may need it. But or they could use it just in The Mandalorian. Like, I have a feeling a lot of this stuff was shot for Mandalorian Season 3, but Book of Boba Fett is doing so bad that they're now pigeonholing it in. Like, that's I would bet dollars to donuts. I would bet any amount of money that that's exactly what they did. They filmed this stuff for Mandalorian Season 3, then they told the audience that they postponed Mandalorian Season 3, even though, like shows normally go, year over year, season over season, so that they could put out the Book of Boba Fett, see the response, and if they needed to, funnel it with Mandalorian Season 3 episodes. Like, that's what it feels like to me. I wouldn't even remotely suspect anything else. This is Disney. This is what they do. But it's just so terrible to do something like that to your audience. So anyway, Mando isn't allowed to see Grogu because it will make, quote, it will make things more difficult for Grogu. Because why? Difficult in what way? There's zero explanation. There's nothing. They just say it. I think it's Ahsoka just says it. And that's it. That's okay. Makes things more difficult for him. Oh, for the kid who's 2 and can hold his hand up and block a giant rhino that's running at them. Yeah. It's making things difficult for him. Yeah, this poor kid. And then they play this big scene music while Mando walks away, giving Ahsoka Grogu's armor that was made from his Beskar spear thing. But we don't actually ever find out again why he can't see him. It's just dumb. It's just to have Ahsoka there. That's her purpose, is to give Luke the chainmail to give to Grogu. That's why she's there, so that Mando doesn't distract Grogu. Like, that is the weakest garbage writing, guys. Like, that's pathetic. You're cameoing somebody in with no reason whatsoever for her to be there. Whether it's, again, her wanting nothing to do with Grogu before, didn't want to train him, to now, oh, well, she has to give Luke this because we can't have Mando, to, oh, now she wants to give input into the training. It's awful. Like, when you put it all together, these guys are the laziest writers. They are lazy. So then Luke's attempts, like, physical training with Grogu, he's 2, but anyways, and there's, like, lots of Yoda references. You even had Grogu in the backpack, and he's flipping and doing very similar things to Empire Strikes Back. It's obviously very much trying to be fan servicey, which is fine. That part was fine. But it's very strange that an untrained Grogu, he can stop a rhino. Remember that scene in Mando, the giant rhino? That's not just an inanimate object. It's physically trying to move forward, and he puts his hand out and stops it. And he can move and he can lift things with the Force and all those things, but then he's struggling to stand up on one foot for a little while, right? Like, really? No. Like, they're treating Grogu like he's this raw, untouched Force user, like Luke was, when in reality he could do a lot of stuff. He'd get weakened and tired from doing so, but he could do a lot of stuff that really he had no business doing with how young he was. But of course, they don't make a coherent story, a coherent writing. They're clearly not planning any of this. All of this stuff is just added on afterwards, and they don't think about me or you as the audience saying, wait a minute, if he can do what he could do with that rhino, why would standing on one foot be a problem for him? Or why would doing anything be a problem for him in Luke's training? Like, he's actually technically, even in the timeline we're in, kind of beyond Luke. Like, Luke never used the Force to do this type of stuff, right? So it doesn't make any sense. Oh, and one other thing. So think about it. So Vader was throwing stuff at Luke, throwing things from, the Bespin, inner core at Luke while they were fighting in their those are inanimate objects. This kid's 2 and he's stopping a moving rhino. Again, it's none of it makes sense, and it's like they don't even think. It's so dumb. So then Luke starts swinging his lightsaber around and putting on a show for Grogu for absolutely no reason other than fan service. That's all that was. It was totally pointless. And then he gives him a training remote and uses it on a 2-year-old who can't even hold a lightsaber, and it puts the training remote shooting laser. It's lasers at Grogu. It's super weird. It's really dumb, and it's bad fan service. It makes no sense. You wouldn't put a training remote on a kid that didn't know how to use the lightsaber. The training remote would be brought in later once Grogu knows how to use the lightsaber, right? Like that's what it's for. It's not for him to hop around and try and dodge and then get hit a bunch of times by. It's so fan servicey, but so way too soon. Just make an episode with as many cameos and fan service shit you can. That's Filoni, and it sucks so bad. And I don't know why people don't see this. Anyways, so then Grogu's flipping around and stuff, which is pointless. I mean, if a droid or anyone else was shooting at him, he could just hold out his hand, right? Like if a stormtrooper was shooting at him, if he can stop a running rhino, he could just fling the stormtrooper. So what's the point of training him with a training remote? The training remote was for Luke because he was new and didn't understand anything. And it was the only thing really Obi-Wan could really do with him at the time, right? He's on the Falcon. Like, what else is he supposed to do? It's just nonsense. This whole show is so dumb, and Mando, the whole thing is just dumb. And then Grogu does what I have been saying. You know, when I first saw the training remote, he just destroys it using the Force, proving how pointless all this running around and jumping is for him, right? Like, it's kind of like how I wasn't a huge fan that George made Yoda into this jumping around lightsaber dueling guy, because he gave you the impression that he was beyond that. He was like at the Emperor's level, right? Like, remember in the OT, the Emperor says, you know, it's a Jedi weapon. It's not for me. That's why him using a lightsaber in the prequel trilogy wasn't, I didn't like. It seemed silly. He seemed beyond that. Yoda seemed beyond that. That was the rivalry. But whatever. Alas, it's just so pointless. And then Ahsoka tells Luke the student sometimes guides the masters. This is where she's I'm not interested in training Grogu, but I'm going to be involved anyways because reasons. And I'm here even though I don't even know where you are, but reasons. It makes me think about how Mary Sue changed Luke, right? From a bum to someone who actually cared again in The Last Jedi. It's like, just there's no reason for it, but we just got to have these other people telling Luke how to do things and stuff, even though he's technically up here. Again, dumb. Anyways, and then there was a good line. There was one good line where Luke said, sometimes I wonder if his heart is in it, in reference to Grogu and his training, and he wasn't training the way Luke wanted him to. And then Ahsoka says, you're so much like your father. And then I was like, oh man, that's a really good line. And then I started thinking, then I was like, wait, the only problem is it's in reference to Grogu using the Force to destroy the remote. Luke was actually kind of irritated that he destroyed the remote, the training remote. It's like, dude, this kid can do stuff you can't even do. Like I said earlier, he can do things you never did. He's more powerful in the Force than you ever were. I mean, at least what we've seen manifested, right? And you're training him like he's you on the Falcon with Obi-Wan when you didn't know anything. I'm not saying Grogu should be that powerful. I'm not saying it makes any sense. It doesn't. It's stupid. It's Disney Star Wars. None of it makes sense. But if you're going to have Grogu able to do that, you can't be like, oh, we got to train him like he's on Dagobah, or we got to train him like he's on the Falcon, when he's beyond that already. For no reason. It's stupid, but he is. So again, it's just this Disney Star Wars stuff. They're making, none of it makes sense. So then Ahsoka leaves. It turns out she's like I said earlier, she's filler cameo to give Grogu the armor, or to give Grogu's armor to Luke to give to Grogu. Because if Mando did, it's bad for reasons which are totally, we don't know, but are really actually to play the audience to try and make their actual reunion, which will happen eventually, more special, right? So he was there, he was so close to him, but he didn't hug him, and he didn't see him. And then we're supposed to get even more emotional, when they finally have their reunion, which, if it happens on the Book of Boba Fett show, will be so bad. But I would not put it past these lazy writers. And then finally, after almost an hour and a half of the Book of Boba Fett show footage, Boba Fett finally appears on screen when Mando arrives at Tatooine. But he never says anything. He just looks around. Which, there's nothing wrong with that. Boba Fett being mysterious and stuff is good. But we're now an hour and a half in. we're 2 episodes deep of no Boba Fett in a show called Book of Boba Fett. Just think about that. It's insanity. I don't know who these people are that are writing this. Like, this is so bad. Okay, so then Boba's crew, you know, like the Power Ranger biker people, the Wookiee, all those guys, Fennec, they're all sitting around openly discussing their plans about the Pikes, and for reasons nobody knows, the mayor's, they're even talking about what they're going to do with the mayor, but the mayor's assistant from the earlier episodes, like the bumbling dumb assistant, he's literally just standing right there. They have him in Boba Fett's throne room listening to them discuss how they're going to deal with the mayor and these other guys. He's a prisoner. What is he doing there? Why is he there? Like, honestly, why is he even in the room? It doesn't make any sense. None of this makes sense. It's just insanity. And then Fennec talks about how they need more men for their battle against the Pikes. And so Mando goes out to get some with his new ship. Cue the 4th cameo of this episode, because Filoni can't think of anything else other than just throwing cameos in with characters that he created that he thinks are so awesome because of his ego. And it's Cad Bane, Whoop-de meets Stew. He offers the Marshal the same money to do nothing as Fett did for the Marshal and his people to fight for him. In other words, he works for the Pikes, or the Syndicate. And then Bane shoots the Marshal and his deputy. And you kind of get the impression that maybe the Marshal survives, but they don't show you in this episode. Then back to the same bar they've been to like 4 times in this series. The helmet cleaner people come out again. Like, honestly, can we clean your helmet? Like, that was literally done so that Boba Fett would take his helmet off, because that's what they do in the show. And yet they brought them back again. Oh, wow. It's so bad. And then the Pikes are like, no, man, we don't want our helmets cleaned. Thanks, though. And even helmet cleaning, like, that sounds... Anyways, whatever. As if... And then the Pikes look like they have some spice or something, and they're hanging out. And it turns out they left an explosive in the bar, and the bar blows up. And my question is, I'm almost happy the bar blew up, but did the band from Jabba's sail barge survive that too, or did they actually die this time? Are they dead now, finally, or are we going to have them back again in another bar? I almost want them to put them back again in another bar, just to show how idiotic it was that they were alive at all. And it almost feels like they listened to people that were like, what the heck are these guys doing here? And then they were like, hey, we better blow up the bar because we can't have these characters still going on because everyone's noticing now and how dumb it is. It's just so bad. Anyway, then we're back to Luke, and he gives Grogu the mithril from Lord of the Rings. Remember that chainmail that even the troll couldn't pierce Frodo with? Anyway, it's this exact same thing happening here. Except in Grogu's case, it's Beskar, right? And then the ultra cringe. This is the cringiest part of the whole episode, of course, happens at the end, which is very typical of Disney. As Luke offers Grogu the chainmail, but he can either have the chainmail or a teeny tiny lightsaber. This is a 2-year-old. And he doesn't need either of them. He doesn't need either of these things. He's way more powerful than anybody else. He doesn't need them. It's so stupid. And then Luke brings up this thing that apparently this is Yoda's lightsaber. Like, are you kidding me? Are we doing this again like we did in The Force Awakens, where Maz has Anakin's Luke's lightsaber? And then they're like, oh, where'd you get that? It's a story for another time. Oh, okay, so Luke. So now that's the standard now. We don't explain why. We just have people's lightsabers everywhere. So somehow Luke has Yoda's lightsaber. It's just awful. Anyways, and like I said, Grogu doesn't need either of these. We don't know how Luke got it. There's no explanation. Of course, as usual, it's Disney Star Wars. This is so bad. And again, I go back to Filoni and his fill-ins and his fetishes. He fetishizes these objects and tries to make them... That was never Star Wars. Stupid lightsaber. Oh my gosh. Anyways, and then Luke says that if he chooses the chainmail or the mithril from Lord of the Rings, from Frodo, He is choosing attachments, but if he chooses the Yoda saber, that he will be Luke's first student. Lame. Like, what a weird thing to make this little teeny baby choose. Again, the chainmail and this saber are pointless for Grogu. He's beyond that. He's more powerful than those things. He doesn't need those things. And then, you get this impression that Luke just really wants this child to be like a young Yoda, like really bad. Like, the writers are trying so hard to make him a young Yoda instead of his own guy. Again, it's just fan servicey garbage. And then Luke literally is like, he sounds like a used car salesman trying to get Grogu to train under him. It's so cringy. It's so it's so bad, you guys. Oh my gosh, the show is the worst ever. And then final point here, 0 lines from Boba in an hour and a half of his show, into 2 full episodes out of 6. So in 33% of the episodes of Book of Boba Fett, he's basically not in them. He's not in this. You see his face for like a second, and then that's it. He doesn't say anything. This show is so terrible. When you really break it down, really stop and think, it's so bad. And I'll go right back to it. Just one last point. It looks very clear to me that they had shot scenes for The Mandalorian, the scenes with Luke and Ahsoka and him and all that stuff. And I will again bet $1 million that those were meant for Mandalorian Season 3. But Boba Fett has been failing and not getting ratings and getting blasted, and people hate it. And so now they've used those in these later episodes to try and prop up Boba Fett. It's not going to work, but that's what they're doing. And I think they think the audience is stupid, and they're going to fall for this. And that's why they postponed Mandalorian Season 3, and I don't know if there'll ever be a Mandalorian Season 3. I think these scenes were shot for Mandalorian Season 3. I would bet any money, if anyone has any insider information, I hope it comes out. But either way, this show sucks. It doesn't make sense. It's jumping all over the place. Whose story is it? It's so bad, I'm in shock. Please like and subscribe. Have a good day.